Remember when I said that I'd do first impressions videos just for a little bit of padding between the other stuff on this channel? Remember when I said that back in April, and now that continues to be the most recent video on the channel? Yeah, good times. I definitely have a valid excuse. Totally haven't been sitting on a bunch of different scripts and allowing them to collect dust while jumping from video game to video game instead of putting in any effort. Why would you think that? What was I here to do again? Oh, right, anime. I've been watching some of that. Good ones, too. But we're not here to talk about good shows. We're here to talk about seasonal anime. Is that good enough for an intro? Yeah, whatever, just play the montage.
What are you doing, step bro?
This one's kind of popular, or at least I've heard about it a lot on Twitter, so, you know, it's only the best takes available on that website. But after watching the first episode, I think this might have to be one of the most average shows I've ever seen. Average characters, average animation, average music, average comedy, average fan service. Really can't say much about it or against it. You've heard the plot before, likely a million times at this point. Two people who broke up have parents who get married, and now they're forced to live together. It's pretty predictable, and honestly the two main characters aren't all that enticing.
Cyclitis.
All I could think of while watching this was that one Mother's Basement video. I might actually watch more than one episode of this. Not because I particularly enjoyed it, but I'm not sure if I dislike it or not. It has some good moments, but you know where this is going. And I have a hard time believing that this show will subvert any expectations. Back on the isekai roller coaster. First up to bat is Black Summoner, and we'll see how it fares.
It's mid at best.
From the start, they really just skip the whole dying, meeting a goddess, getting your powers, and then getting to the fun. Which, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it feels like I've seen the exact start to an isekai about 15 times before. Also, the main character doesn't have any memories of his from being alive, which I guess is a little different than most isekai. But it also makes me wonder why it had to be an isekai in the first place. Could have easily just been a fantasy show without the isekai element, but maybe that's because they still wanted the video game elements included. This episode was a drag to get through. It could be that I'm completely burnt out on the genre, but either way, this show did absolutely nothing to garner interest. I almost fell asleep halfway through. Now that we're done with that isekai, what's next on our list? Oh, it's more isekai? Fantastic. No, that's great. If you had to take a drink for every ass shot in the opening alone, your family would be planning your funeral by the time the anime actually started. The show wasn't that bad, actually, but it's also nothing special. I wasn't bored out of my mind like Black Summoner. Though it's a bit weird that we're 2 for 2 right now on isekai anime this season dealing with slave traders. At least the main character seems to know what he wants in life. Though I wish I could understand what they were saying, because 90% of the dialogue was just censored. Ending had no business being such a jam. Coming from someone who was a massive fan of early RWBY through the end of the Monty Home days, I was really excited to hear that it was getting an anime adaptation. And even more so that Shaft was the studio behind it. Even if it's not their own property, it's definitely still got that Shaft touch to it.
What do you mean by that?
Genuinely curious how the show will be handled without Rooster Teeth. This take on the story is definitely going to be much more serious, making me wonder how certain events will be handled.
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
It's already much easier on the eyes, considering how rough the animation was for the first few volumes of RWBY. It's a step up from not having to see blacked out shadow people for anyone in the background. I was a bit concerned about how the music would be without the original RWBY soundtrack, but that concern was quickly extinguished too. If I'm being honest, and we're going just off the first episode, this is what I wanted RWBY to be from the beginning. It's great to see it finally meet expectations. Getting Gen Urobuchi on your staff is probably a good start. Just wish Monty could have lived to see it. Fuck, that got depressing. What's next on the list? We have gay girls this season? Shit, we do. Alright, perfect. Roll the clip. This show's fucking awesome. They even have that lonely older woman, so it instantly has a 10 out of 10 in my book. I had no idea what to expect since I hadn't heard anything about this show, but I'm loving it so far. It doesn't seem to be a downside just yet. The animation and art style are solid. And the action balance is perfect with the slice of life elements they mix in.
Excuse me,
Did I just catch you disrespecting women?
Seriously, I really enjoyed watching the first episode of this show. It's oddly refreshing. It's a little upsetting that it's only getting 13 episodes, but we'll see how the story carries throughout. From what I've seen, it's pretty popular, and it deserves the attention. Sometimes feels like you're watching two shows at once. One about a cheery girl just being bubbly to the people around her, and suddenly swapping to gunfights and terrorism. This is currently rated to be the best new title of the summer season that isn't a sequel or a leftover from spring. I can't wait to see more of it. They introduced so many characters in the first episode, and I already love all of them. Don't know where the story's gonna lead, but I'm more than willing to stick around and find out. The premise of this one reminds me a lot of Spy Family, in the sort of family feel in the middle of a violent plot. This one a bit more on the nose since there's no hiding of identities, but the comedy's about on par. It's not hard to get into the show either, and all the characters are pretty enjoyable. Though Yaika isn't anywhere near the same stratosphere as Anya, it might be a bit of an unfair bar to set. She's pretty lovable too. This show makes it pretty easy to put a smile on your face. It's sweet, and they give you some pretty wholesome moments that hit the mark in only the first episode. Glad that amidst all the harem and isekai garbage that we get spoon-fed every season, shows like this and Spy Family are able to peek their heads out over the rest. A bit worried that it would be hard to follow up a powerhouse of a season like the spring we just had, but things aren't off to a bad start at all. This one's a solid sleeper. I appreciate this one, taking a little bit of a different approach to the isekai genre, though it still has trouble standing out when it comes to the other shows this season. The premise is alright, but I think it would have been better to just have a show based on the main character before he died. Now that he's just an overpowered rich kid in another universe, it kind of loses its luster. Characters are pretty bland and generic as well, so there's not really any stakes, but that could probably change as the season goes on. I had to admit, hearing the synopsis for the series did make me feel as though it would be a bit more interesting, so it's hard to say that I'm not disappointed with the way this played out. Still, it could turn into something. The ending of the first episode did sort of catch my attention, but it hardly made up for how boring the middle was. Haven't decided if I'm going to continue yet or not. I'm just hoping for at least one of these isekai shows for this season to be good, but for the moment it's looking like another flop. I wish I had any idea what was going on here. It's like Date Alive fused with Saikon no Quasar, and we just have to sweep up the crumbs and make a story out of it ourselves.
Please, sir. I want some
Context.
The show's kinda stupid, and the characters are alright at best. The main character himself is somewhere between human garbage and a thief of oxygen, yet somehow he has two women falling over him. But boy, did they put a lot of love into that kissing scene. There have been a lot of shows this season which have made me wonder if I want to continue watching, and this one can easily find itself on the list. I can't name any redeeming qualities, yet at the same time I'm sort of curious as to where the hell they plan on guiding this. Would I recommend the show to anybody? No. Are you still gonna come back next week? Probably. Not sure who Soichiro Yamamoto is paying off to get all of his works published within a 3-year span, but it's starting to be a bit suspicious. I'm also not entirely convinced they haven't just animated Takagi with 3 fresh coats of paint, and for Ayumu it seems like the freshest coat of paint is just a watered down version of Love is War. Like, actually though. The only difference is that these two aren't in some elite school, and they just have a mental block from asking each other out instead of having their pride get in the way. On top of that, they seem way more outspoken about knowing the other has a crush on them. Compared to Love is War though, it's nowhere close. But on its own, it'll get a few chuckles out of you, and the two main characters do have some chemistry. The show can be cute. It might be the best first episode out of all of Soichiro's animated titles. It's also great seeing a male main character who doesn't get embarrassed just by complimenting women. One of these days, I'm gonna be able to see the word suspicious and not giggle like a schoolgirl. But sadly, that day is not today. Also, how do you decide to inherit a mansion? The show nonchalantly brushes over some tragic backstory, and the kid speaks about it with a huge-ass smile on his face. Also, this Rudy-as Grey Rat clone can't do shit on his own. Though that I have absolutely no idea where this story's going, I can almost guarantee that Twitter artists don't care. Yet another show that I have no idea how to feel about it after I watched it, but goddamn if that smile isn't worth $1 million. Sort of like a mixture of Violet Evergarden and Plastic Memories, except not as good. I was interested in seeing the war side of these automatas, but it doesn't seem like we're gonna get much else besides Lollybait Cafe. I was a bit excited when I saw that Key and Visual Arts were working on this together, but it seems like it's hitting just shy of the mark. A bit too cutesy, and way too many of those scenes for any of the deeper ones to really land, though I can't say it's for a lack of trying. And now for probably the most popular show of the new season. The scenery for this show is absolutely fantastic. The way colors change upon scenery and are used for the palette, not to mention the animation and camera angles. Lighting above all else helps this show stick out in just a few minutes. I have absolutely nothing but praise for Call of the Night. Animation, art style, and the characters, everything about it's perfect. Felt like the first episode went by in an instant and left me just wanting more. Opening, ending, and the OST were all nothing short of stellar. Following the jam-packed spring season, it was always going to be a difficult task, and while there were a few titles that flopped, there were also a handful that could stand to hold us over until that loaded fall season. It's also seemingly a sequel for everything this season, so if I didn't cover an anime here, it's probably because it was another season for a show I haven't seen yet. Also, I greatly apologize for the inactivity on this channel. More videos are coming, and that I promise. I had 100 ideas at once, and my tiny little caveman brain decided to split time on scripts instead of just focusing on one. And there are some longer ones in the tube as well. And I mean possibly the longest video on the channel that isn't an iceberg, depending on how things work out with it. Probably hop back into the icebergs as well, now that we're on the topic, since those videos tend to be good padding between larger projects. Again, thank you guys for being so patient. If you like this kind of video, make sure to leave a like and comment. And while you're down there, maybe leave a comment on something you'd like to see me talk about in the future. While I have a few new projects in the works, I'm always open to new ideas. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Lord knows both of those things are active. And I think that's it. See you guys in the next video.